Hello, welcome to Expansive Astrology Academy, Taurus season. This is your week 2 video. We are diving into trust, control, trust, and security. It ain't no small thing. Big topics this week. I hope you're ready. We're diving in here because Taurus is in its prime when it is stable and secure and steadfast and able to cultivate pleasure from there, right? And so when I'm thinking of stability and security and pleasure, there are two big things that kind of come up for me that kind of like hold what might get in the way of you cultivating a sense of security and a sense of pleasure. My experience tells me that blockages to those things come from trauma and the effects of trauma, hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, and like lack of faith in the world. Trauma and like the way we were parented, those can be very related, clearly. But the way that we were parented or protected or not parented and protected. So I think Taurus is such a great time to really be looking at that because Taurus invites us with its Venus and Empress correspondences, along with the Hierophant too. These energies ask us to look within and parent ourselves and cultivate pleasure from there. So we're just going to dive right in. To start, I really want to set the stage a little bit. So check out the PDF. I kind of consolidated some of my favorite questions or topics from the material into the PDF, and I ask a million questions throughout. We're going to start with some questions right now. I encourage you to pause where you need to, write down any questions that you want to ask for yourself that come up as I speak. Write down questions that I ask, pause and like chew on this, digest this. This can be really difficult material to hear sometimes because hypervigilance and our inner protector, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, they are really good at what they do and they don't want to leave. They don't want to stop. So when confronted with the reality that your inner protector actually doesn't have any control over jack shit, or the reality that, what else was I gonna say? Oh, that there's like a better way. Our inner protector kind of goes, wait, like, no, like, I don't want to, you can't get rid of me. You can't, these earrings are wild. Sorry. You can't get rid of me. You can't, I can't stand down, right? Hypervigilance has a hard time standing down because it's here to protect. So this is hard work. So I encourage you to take your time with it and really dive into it. This work happens in layers, from like the most basic, like I need to feel safe and secure right now in this moment, to really meta deep layers. I think we'll get into that a little bit more later. For now, let's start to set the stage a little bit. I want you to define what trauma means for you. What do you think trauma means? How have you experienced trauma in your life? How has trauma informed your view of the world? Not only like what might have happened to you, but also like generationally. What generational trauma is so significant? Cultural trauma is so significant. How, global trauma, at the time of this filming, we're in a global pandemic. How has your experience with trauma informed your view of the world? It's really important to kind of get a baseline understanding of that sort of thing before we dive in. I also want you to consider, how does hypervigilance show up for you? How does your inner protector or your need for control show up for you in your life? Both in helpful and effective ways and perhaps in ineffective ways. I'm Just now going to turn that on. Don't mind me. How does hypervigilance show up for you? How does it impact you to be, if you are, when you are hypervigilant? What happens for you? Do you get very stressed? Does it feel really helpful? What happens for you when you don't have control over something? What happens for you when you get triggered? How does hypervigilance and how does trauma impact your life right now? And it's really important to assess that because this helps serve as your why. Because we need a really strong understanding of let me back up. Because we are so fucking resilient and amazing. We are incredible creatures, and we are able to adapt and accept and bounce back from horrible things, terrible fucked up things, amazing things. We are so adaptable, and hypervigilance and having a really strong inner protector are examples of that. They're examples of how we maintain resilience, right? So understanding how those sorts of things might be impacting you in negative ways is really important to acknowledge and understand, because you need a really firm why are we going into this work right now. You need to be able to tell your brain chemistry and remind your brain and remind your inner protector of why we're kind of gonna steer away from that. We're working on shaking up how we respond to those sorts of things these days, Mr. Inner Protector. I'm going to try it this way this time, and we'll see how it goes, right? You have to have a really strong why and a really strong understanding of the ways that the inner protector, hypervigilance, etc., are a need for control, are impacting you negatively. So, this work is really difficult. We're going to talk a little bit more later about the difference between fear and logic and how our inner protector uses fear and disguises it as logic. And this work is really difficult because cars are scary, right? They are dangerous, especially if you've been in a car accident before. Cars are scary. And this work is really hard because people do leave. And like these fears that might consume us, that I'm going to be left and I'm going to be abandoned, or hypervigilance around the world is unsafe and this, that, or the other way. It's hard to calm those fears because the world is a scary place, and bad things do happen to us, so the goal here this week and in treating your trauma in general, like this ongoing work first, is to develop a deep and knowing, understanding relationship with your inner protector or your inner parent. I kind of talk about them interchangeably. Have a deep relationship with your inner protector to instill a deep and complete trust in the universe and in divine timing. We're going to go into that later. And 3, embracing a radically embracing your inner power, letting go of a need for control, and embracing radically your power. We're going to go into those 3 things in detail. So first of all, let's kind of redefine trauma, shall we? Think of how you define trauma and where that comes from. The latest edition of the DSM, the diagnostic requirements for PTSD, requires that the event be life-threatening physically, or that you witnessed something life-threatening, like vicarious trauma or secondary trauma too. But technically, for a diagnosis of PTSD, technically you have to have experienced an event where you thought your life was in danger. that wasn't always the case. And I kind of hope that in the future, we go back to how it used to be. In the past, extreme psychological distress also counted. Now, you can certainly, I could go into how problematic all of that is, and I'm going to save it. My point is that trauma and crisis and like triggering events are fucking subjective. What traumatizes one person might not traumatize another, and that's fine. I think I know a lot of people who feel like their traumatic experiences weren't quite traumatic enough. And so for our purposes here, and I want to encourage you to know that that you've been traumatized. I'm so kidding and sorry, because that's not what I mean. That trauma is subjective. That nobody can tell you that an experience wasn't bad enough for how you react or how you feel or the impact of it. Because we are all big babies, and I have some evidence for this. We are all big babies, and things impact us in significant ways. And yes, we are very resilient, and we can handle a whole lot, and we're kind of big babies. So I think it's really important to like redefine trauma and acknowledge that things have a big impact, even though we are very resilient. So my acupuncturist, there's a protocol called aggressive energy treatment, I believe, and it's like a series of acupuncture points down your spine in a certain order. Very interesting. Like when they put them in, they kind of get like red and like bumpy where the needles are, and the acupuncturist can tell when you're ready to be done with the treatment because those circles will significantly decline as the energy like escapes you. So interesting, so fascinating. But this aggressive energy treatment, they recommend it happens to you anytime your energy is so shaken. They actually say it is imperative that you get an aggressive energy treatment anytime your energy is shaken so much as if you're cut off in traffic. And when he said it is imperative, that's what they believe. It's imperative that you get this energetic treatment when something as small as getting cut off in traffic happens. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like that really had me rethinking how things impact us, right? So like if you're in a home where there's yelling often, even if you're used to it, even if you're, I don't know, like it doesn't have to mean that it's fucking traumatic and that it's having a bad impact on you, right? If it's not, then it's not, and that's great. And don't underestimate the impact of something like that. Don't underestimate what it can do to you to get into a big argument with your partner, right? That might fuck up your sleep and your digestion for a couple days. It can really mess up your muscles. Like, even seemingly small events have a big impact on us, even though we are so hella resilient. And so I mentioned this, and I really want to encourage you to treat yourself like a big old baby, because we're here to reparent ourselves, and we're not used to treating our energy so preciously, most of us. Now, shake it out a little bit and grab a sip of water. When we're babies, little baby kiddos, we are, we smell really good, and our eyes are really big in our skull, and our mothers have a visceral reaction to hearing us cry, like a physical reaction often, for a reason. We are created to be cute enough to be taken care of. Biologically, I don't know how else to say that, so I hope that makes sense. But like biologically, evolutionarily, everything that we are as babies is so that, well, kind of encourages our parents to take care of us, or that's like that's how it's supposed to be. So get this. This example is wild. Little baby kid is crawling on the floor. And mom is so proud at what a big crawler the baby is, right? And baby looks back at mom, and mom looks at baby, and they make eye contact, and something registers in baby's brain, like, oh, mom's looking at me, mom's proud of me, I'm safe. So baby crawls a little further and having so much fun, and baby looks back at mom, and mom looks at baby, and they make eye contact, and baby knows that they are safe, and so they keep crawling. And this time, they look back at mom, and mom is checking a text or talking to her friend, and misses that moment of eye contact. And something happens in that baby's experience, in that baby's brain, that says, ooh, I can't go further than this before mom no longer pays attention and I'm in danger. Okay. It's amazing and terrifying because it says that like our parents fucked up a lot. Right? And I'm joking, but I'm not. It says that like the slightest, I don't even want to call it a miss, but the slightest miss in that circumstance does have an impact on baby. Is it a huge lasting impact? Something like that? No. Like I'll keep saying, we are hella resilient beings, right? And something like that sends a message to baby and has an impact on them. So, how are you parented? Do you know? Did you have to cry it out? And like, let's not get into a discussion on how to parent. That's not what this is about. But kinda, like, were your needs met? How did you learn to get your needs met? What do you think? And okay, this can be really hard work, and it depends on the situation. I like to believe that everybody is doing the best they can with what they've got, and parenting is hella hard, and most parents fucked us up. Like all of our parents have fucked us up, and every parent for the entire eternity will screw up their kids in some ways. Everybody is human, and everybody does things wrong, and it's all just like things for us to overcome. Whatever, like having more understanding for your parents' humanness has really helped me, and it absolutely depends on the situation. It depends on, I'm not here to tell you whether or not to forgive your parents for their shit. That might, but I am here to encourage you to radically accept your parents for their shit and what happened to you. Like look at how you were parented, how you were protected or not. And I'm sorry if this is difficult, and I'm sorry if you had a fucked up childhood, because I did too. And it takes a lot of work to look at that and accept it. Not air quotes accept it, but like accept it. And then reparent yourself. And that's what this is about. I really want to keep going on a tangent about like forgiveness and acceptance, and I'm going to rein it back in. But if you want more on that, you need more on that, and you want some work around that, I'm always available for private coaching on that, or let me know and maybe I'll do some sort of lesson on that. I'm going to rein it back in. How were you protected? What do you think the impact was of like your parents' workload? How the other kids that they had, like how much attention do you think you got, or how did you have to nurture yourself? Did you have to deal with your fears and your worries yourself, or were you very nurtured. You know, there's a lot that goes into this. It's hard. It's hard work. And it's important because the way we were parented has an impact on our sense of deservingness. Like I said, evolutionarily, we were designed to be cute enough to make our parents take care of us. That's really reductive, but stay with me. When our needs go unmet, I believe something in our bones, something in our like blood in our brain worries that it's our fault that our needs aren't getting met. By our caregivers especially. When we are not provided with a sense of safety and security and protection as a child, we wonder what's wrong with us, right? It's so classic. When parents get divorced, the kid blames themselves. We blame ourselves for like everything, as adults and children. So it's important to know and really have an acceptance of how you were parented and protected so that you can adjust and like tend to your sense of deservingness. That's reason one. So that you can tend to your sense of deservingness because you deserved and do deserve to be parented well and nourished and nurtured well and have all of your fucking needs met. You deserve that. Sorry that your parents were really human or abusive. Like, abuse is abuse. It's important to accept all of this because when we become triggered or activated as adults, I think we tend to do one of two things. We either revert to some childhood version of ourselves. I'll go more into that. Or we like turn into one of our parents or caregivers when we're triggered. So it's important to know how we were parented and really have an understanding of that for that reason. And because it can be just fucking traumatic and we're here to reparent ourselves and deal with the trauma. So who do you become when you're triggered, when you're activated? And I like interchanging those words, triggered and activated, because activated to me is a little more descriptive, and it means like that word activated calls me to identify what is activated, right? Is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it anger? Whatever. So when we become activated, who do you revert to? Do you revert to a 6-year-old version of you when you're overwhelmed and somebody's arguing with you and you can't handle it anymore? Do you cover your ears and say, "Shut up, just stop, leave me alone"? Do you run away and slam the door like a 16, 17-year-old version of you or a person? Do you become an asshole, angry, abusive parent when you're activated? What do you become when you're activated? I think it's really common to become a very young version of us. I think it's really common to kind of cry and, storm around and scream and throw a little fit sometimes. Who do you become when you're activated? When we're speaking about something like this, about trauma and like these automatic responses when we're activated or triggered and hypervigilance, when we're talking about these things, what we're talking about is brain chemistry, right? And with brain chemistry, when we're talking about the brain, we can always choose whether or not we're going to take the brain's invitation into something. So this again means developing a very close and knowing relationship with your brain and how it operates, knowing your inner protector and what they're trying to accomplish here, and how to take control of the steering wheel again. You're going to always take control of the steering wheel again and say, okay, brain, I see you, you're reacting, you're activated, you want me to cover my ears and like run away from the situation and like, I can't handle this right now. I'm triggered. I'm activated. And I'm not going to be 6. This is where I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But you notice that you're activated. Notice what you want to do, and you're maybe you have taken the brain's invitation and you've run away and you're covering your ears and you're like yelling back and you slam the door and you're really freaking out because the brain tells you to, because this is a fucked up situation, right? Maybe you're taking the brain's invitation. You can always stop and say, ooh, okay, brain, I'm kind of acting 6 here or 17 or 20 or I'm acting like my mom here, whatever it is. I'm acting disempowered here, again, whatever it is. And I hear you, brain, that this is an injustice and that you're having a whole lot of feelings about this. I hear you, brain, and I don't have to be 6 here. I can handle this argument because I am an adult, and you kind of can parent yourself through the situation rather than slamming the door and being 6 about it. Again, I got a little ahead of myself, but this is about not taking the brain's invitations into everything. You can parent yourself into a more aligned response. So let's talk about hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is a reaction to trauma or anxiety. Hypervigilance is a state of heightened alertness accompanied by behavior that aims to prevent danger. Okay, so this is an heightened abnormal alertness that creates or is accompanied by precipitates a change in behavior, some sort of behavior and the goal is to prevent danger. It's where the subconscious is always anticipating something dangerous to happen. So this is a protective response, and it is not a helpful response. This is a long-term stress response that has a severe impact on the mind and body. The adrenal system, when we're hypervigilant, releases cortisol, the stress hormone, and this can cause us to be jumpy, on edge, unable to relax, unable to sleep. Some say we only have 2 options: fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or rest and digest. There's no in between. So when we're in hypervigilance and cortisol is being fucking pumped out, we're unable to rest and digest. So over time, this sort of long-term stress response can cause us to seek respite from that, even though and we become really used to this. We become really used to being hella hypervigilant. We become used to feeling unsafe, irritable, jumpy, unable to relax, stressed, overworked, and tired. We're very adaptable. We adapt to that. And ultimately, we seek respite from that. We seek respite from hypervigilance. We, in not so healthy ways, if we're not careful. It can be substance use. It can be avoidance. It can be like obsessive compulsive behaviors, codependency type behaviors, any sort of addiction, anything to numb us out from the fucking long-term stress response. So if you're in a state of hypervigilance, this work is everything. So fucking important. So how do you overcome hypervigilance? I have 8 steps that I'm going to try to go through kind of quickly. But first, let's go back to some of the why. When we're in a state of hypervigilance, when our subconscious is always waiting for the danger, it leads to us having a narrative full of like scary what ifs. It leads to us what ifing ourselves into panic. A lot of times it'll be, what if something goes wrong? What if we explode? What if they leave me? What if? And we know that our narratives create our realities. I have a really great example of this. from a friend who told me that she goes around every day saying, I'm gonna fucking freak out. I'm gonna fucking lose it. I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna fucking freak out. And, like, she gets challenged and she says, I'm gonna fucking freak out. And then inevitably, eventually, something happens that causes her to fucking freak out. And that she's in a state of hypervigilance, right? And then anytime she's ready for something to go wrong, and then anytime something goes wrong, it's, I'm gonna fucking freak out. I can't handle it. I can't handle one more thing going wrong. It's like, word, sister. Oh my God. Can't imagine. But imagine if the narrative was, I got this. Ugh, I can handle this. Even at the most, like, annoying bullshit occurrences, if you approach it instead of like, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind if one more thing goes wrong, instead shifting into a narrative of, I got this, I can handle this, that is what your reality will be, right? So when we're in a state of hypervigilance and those what ifs go wild, it helps create a reality that reinforces more hypervigilance. The universe is co-creating with you. So if you intend to have a reality that is full of trust and comfort, not saying that terrible, difficult, traumatic, challenging shit won't happen. But if you live in a reality that you've got this and you can handle this, and the universe is co-creating like what you need, then that will be your reality. And even when the really fucked up challenges happen, your reality will be, I've got this, and the universe is co-creating something better for me. But if your reality is full of hypervigilance and full of, I'm gonna fucking lose it, and bad shit always happens, and I can't handle this anymore, that's what happens. It's the reality that happens. And again, it's not that you cause bad things to happen, because bad things happen on both sides. It's the way that you approach it and your belief of your own power and your trust in the universe. Ugh. And that's kind of a spoiler for what's about to come. So, 8 steps to overcoming hypervigilance. The first is to raise your standards and trust that you deserve. So that comes back to we are very resilient beings. We tend to be okay with minimal sleep, being overworked, being very stressed, being mistreated. Raise your standards. You deserve more pleasure and more ease. Taurus, Venus, the Empress would want you to have more pleasure and more ease. Increase your sense of deservingness. Raise your standards so that you can parent yourself out of hypervigilance and into just vigilance. Plain old vigilance. Yeah? Step 2, hella mindfulness of both your thoughts and your body. So, for example, this starts with things like cueing, like it might start with things like cueing in to, oh my God, I am yelling right now. I am yelling. And then connecting that to the why. Why am I yelling? Because you don't feel heard. You don't feel understood because somebody's yelling at you. Why are you yelling? So mindfulness of what your body is doing and why. It can be, really like physical. This can be difficult at first, and it might require really like overt body movements for you to start to increase your mindfulness about. But eventually, you'll become so in tune with your body that it'll become much more subtle. Like for me, some of the most subtle ones that I have, I will feel even just the slightest lump in my throat if there's something that I need to say that I'm neglecting. Some of the times I don't even know what it is that I'm neglecting, and so some of the times when I notice the lump in my throat, I'm like, oh fuck, like what am I afraid to say here? And that has been very helpful because that helps me speak my truth. When I notice a lump in my throat, and oftentimes that happens when we're crying or trying to choke back tears, right? When there's a lump in your throat, what do you need to say? Oh, I love that one. Also, I get a really weird tingly sensation between a couple of my vertebrae, right between my like shoulder blades. I get this really excited tingly sensation that I can't really describe besides that. When something like that feels really positive for me is happening. When I feel really in alignment, it's really cool. The more in tune you get, like you'll notice how cricked up your neck gets. You'll notice that you get constipated or you need less food when you're really overwhelmed and stressed. My acupuncturist said it's because you're like figuratively fed up. And so your body is like fed up and holding on to stuff. Interesting. So mindfulness is really, really helpful in managing hypervigilance. Step 3 is know your triggers. It goes kind of along with step 2 with the mindfulness. This is a little more specific, like what activates you. Again, what activates different emotions? What causes you to go back to fear that everybody leaves you? What causes you to go back to fear that you're on your own and can't get support or whatever? I don't know. What are your triggers? What causes you to kind of lose your cool? Very important to know what even does it, right? The next one is learn to self-soothe in healthy ways, not numbing ways, not unhealthy temporary ways, but learn to self-soothe in really effective ways. And that I really love the idea of parenting yourself. So when you are activated, when you're triggered, and oftentimes when we're triggered, we revert back to an old, younger version of ourselves, right? So know what triggers you. Have mindfulness so for example, know what triggers you, have mindfulness of how that impacts you. Maybe that means you kind of revert back to some like 6-year-old fit throwing, tantrum, crying, attention grasping behaviors. Learn how to parent yourself through that. And so that would look like maybe, perhaps, oh my gosh, I can see that you are really hurt right now and really needing, like you talk, literally kind of talking to yourself, coaching yourself through it. I can see that you're really needing some love and attention. You're needing to be heard. You're really frustrated. That's valid. Like shush, 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 little darling. Self-soothe yourself through it and kind of come back into adulthood where you can handle a lot because you're fucking incredible and super resilient. Parent yourself back to that place so that you can go from there. Step 5, if you're suffering from hypervigilance, is look for actual evidence of what's going on. A lot of times, the hypervigilance brain fear does not want to do this, right? Ooh, sorry, speaking of like cricks in the neck, I'm a little stressed. This video has been a lot of work coming, a lot of technical difficulties, so I think I'm feeling it. Okay, sorry. Look for evidence. When hypervigilance hears a thud downstairs and goes through a whole fucking scenario of like some guy breaking in and stealing your TV and like he's gonna come get you. Ugh, super scary thoughts, right? I've been there. I watch way too much true crime. I had to kind of stop. Self-soothe through that fear and look for evidence. Go downstairs. Do what you need to. Like, don't be an idiot. Like, and look for evidence that what's happening is that what you think is happening. Because usually, especially if you know you're hypervigilant, usually it's probably the dumb cat knocked something off the table, right? Or somebody's sneaking in the fridge, getting a midnight snack, and you thought it was some burglar. Don't bring a bat downstairs if it's your brother in the fridge, you know? Hypervigilance wants you to have a bat, but just vigilance says, like, ooh, I better go check out what's going on. Again, this is not about, like, if your inner protector is like, well, that's stupid, I need to be more safe than that, do what you need to be safe, right? Bring the bat, but don't hit your brother. There's a line between, like, the logic of it and the fear of it. Okay. Tip 6 is to breathe, respond, not react. Okay? Hypervigilance is a reaction, and that's fine. That's great. Hypervigilance is here to tell us, like, oh, something might be in danger. Oh my God, protect yourself. Get the sword. That's okay. It's a reaction, but that doesn't mean we have to react too. We can take a beat and breathe and use the hypervigilance and what it's telling us to just respond. That kind of goes back to not necessarily taking the brain's invitations. You take a beat and look at the reaction and then have power over how you respond. Number 7 is to really know yourself and have acceptance of what you need, and have an understanding of what you need, have a plan for what you need. So because we're so resilient and adaptable and amazing, and we put up with a lot, I think sometimes we don't really totally meet ourselves where we're at and honor what we need. You know, sometimes I see it all the time. We push ourselves big time, and whether it's out of guilt or like toxic productivity or like perfectionism, whatever comes up, we overexert ourselves or we neglect what big babies we are and how needy we are sometimes, and try to just push through. And I think it's really important to have a deep knowing of yourself and having an understanding of like, let me think of one. Be okay with not compromising on some things. Like if you the only example that's coming to mind, so I'm going to run with it, is if you have a trauma from a shower. This is common. I've come across it in my work as a therapist. Traumas around showers can be fucking really hard for people, and it can cause people to like neglect hygiene because they're afraid to shower. Meet yourself where you are, know that about yourself, and just use a clear shower curtain. That's fine. Understand that about yourself and execute a plan that can help you through that. Sorry, I have something in my eye that was probably maybe a little disturbing and gross. I'm really sorry. Okay. Step 8 is like to seek professional treatment. There are some really wonderful evidence-based therapies for treating trauma and anxiety, paranoia, hypervigilance, whether that's EMDR therapy that I won't describe here, but if you suffer from trauma, look into EMDR therapy. It's brilliant. And redefine your definition of trauma. I did EMDR for both a very bad car accident, and I did EMDR for my very first heartbreak when I was a wee little teenager, and he just destroyed me, and I was really stuck in the heartbreak for such a long time. Poor little Melissa, and I did EMDR around it, and it really helped. So EMDR is magical if you can get it. Also, like exposure therapy can help. I don't think I'll go into that a whole lot. But slowly exposing yourself to situations that scare you and showing yourself that you can handle it and parent yourself through it and that you're safe and capable. That's kind of exposure therapy in a nutshell and can be so effective and very powerful. So, all right, let me take a sip. We're transitioning into how to have trust in the universe. How to, like, and this kind of speaks to how to manage your mindset around some of this stuff. I think it's so important to have a knowing that nothing happens by accident. As a rule, adopting a belief that you will not ever experience anything on this earth that was not meant to propel you forward in some ultimately positive way. Adopt this belief wholeheartedly. Nothing that you encounter on this earth will be meant for your detriment. Understand divine timing. Believe in, tell yourself always, I am in the right place at the right time. Even in the most annoying or frustrating or difficult of circumstances, to believe that. That's when it's most important. To tell yourself, like, I don't have to know. I don't have to understand why. But for some reason, for some fucking reason, I trust that I am in the right place at the right time. Another version of that might be, I trust in the timing of my life. Remember that your ideas, your dreams for your future are here for a reason. They are obtainable. They're attainable. You wouldn't have a vision for your future just as a tease to fuck with you. Your vision for your future self, you can absolutely have that. And balance that with knowing, remember that you have no clue what will ultimately be the best for you. Think of what you thought would be the best for you when you were 6, or when you were 13, or when you were 20. Right? Like, we are constantly curating better and better goals for ourselves, and like a better and different, we're curating a vision of our future, we're curating a version of ourselves as we go all the time based on our experiences. So it's silly to assume that at any point you have a full understanding of what is best for you. You don't fucking know. You don't know what might come up for you this year, next year, 10 years from now. You could be totally blown away by the direction of your life, and you could be 10 times happier than you ever imagined by that. Because of that, I guess. Whatever. And this, don't presume to know what's best for you. And this can kind of help you like loosen the grip on a need for control, or a worry that things aren't happening in your best interest. Affirm, I can always choose my vibe, even and especially when that's really fucking hard. Affirm, I don't need to know the purpose of this right now. You can say that and that can be hard to accept. I had a million technical difficulties with this video exactly, and I was affirming to myself, I don't need to know the purpose right now. I don't need to know why this is happening right now, but it fucking is. Because bad shit happens. Frustrating shit happens all the time, and it gets really hard to accept and believe in like divine timing and trust in the universe, especially when bad shit happens. And can you trust in the universe, especially in those difficult moments? Can you view all of your obstacles as portals? Everything that comes up for you as an invitation to be better. Trust that. The most frustrating of shit that happens to you, the most swept the rug under your feet shit that happens to you is a portal into a cooler, smarter, wiser, more better, like managed, I don't know, more capable version of you. It's all a portal. It all happens when it needs to happen for you, with what you've got in that moment. Trust that. Divine timing. Even and especially when it's hard, even and especially when it's annoying. Adopt a phrase, a mantra. Of course this would happen. Of course this would happen. But not from a victim mentality of fucking, of course this would happen. Of course this would happen. Not like that. A very loving and humorous, with love and humor in your heart. Of course this would happen. This is showing, of course, this challenge is in my way. The universe has a fucked up sense of humor. The universe likes to give us a good giggle. Of course this would happen to me. This is here to help me grow. Of course this would happen. Love and humor in your heart. So, I think a final note on really gaining control of this is knowing the difference between control and power. I have to move kind of quickly here. So make sure you let me know your thoughts. Make sure you reach out with any questions, because I have to move kind of quickly here. Control. Defined. The definition of control is to determine the behavior or supervise the running of, to maintain influence or authority over, and to limit the level, intensity, or numbers of. So to determine the behavior of, to maintain influence or authority over, and to limit the intensity or amount of something. That's control. And to me, I don't know about you, it kind of comes down to semantics in a way. That sounds very micromanagey. Very almost kind of stressful. Now power, on the other hand, the definition of power is the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. So the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. To me, power speaks a whole lot more to what I'm bringing to a situation and my energy in a situation. It speaks to my ability to influence what's going on for and around me. So trying to get rid of a need for control and trying to remind my ego and my inner protector that I don't have control anyways, no matter how hard I try. All these disempowered, desperate attempts to gain control, and maybe I even feel like I have control. Maybe I even do kind of have control sometimes, or feel like I have control. I don't. I do. You don't have control over fucking anything. We die alone. You don't have control over anything, but you do have power over yourself and how you are in the world, how you are responding to the world. You have a hell of a lot of power. And that's the mantra this week. I have so much power. And reminding yourself of that constantly, I think, will help bring you back to an ability to be just vigilant, not hyper vigilant, but just vigilant, and parent yourself. So what will it look like for you to embrace your power? What will it look like for you to really parent yourself the way that you need and deserve to be parented? The inner child within you deserves to be parented very well. So ask yourself, where am I neglecting my power? Where do I need it the most? What would it look like? What would it feel like if I had so much power over myself and my world? How would I show up? What would that look like? How would you interact with people if you felt like you had power over yourself and your world? Power over your brain chemistry. How can you start to step into that today? That question of how would it feel to have power? Answer that question and try to step into that today. And then again, when you're feeling disempowered. And again, tomorrow when you wake up. And again, after you get in an argument. And again, after you do something that you're really ashamed of and that you wish you didn't and you should have known better and oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And again, after, again and again and again. Step into that ultra power, baby. What turns you the fuck on? What gets you fucking excited? What makes you feel empowered and excited and passionate about life? What turns you on to life? And what's getting in the way of really fostering that and creating that for yourself? Parent yourself. Create a life for yourself that is exciting and fun and fruitful and full of all the shit All the shit that you dream of and want, all the shit that turns you on and excites you. What gets in your way of fostering that? Is it because you have a fucked up sense of deservingness because you weren't parented very well? Or maybe you have a lot of shame? I don't know. What gets in your way of fostering a life that turns you the fuck on and lights you the fuck up? That's what Taurus wants you to do. That's what you want to do. Parent your way toward that. This work is like nitty gritty. It's about feeling safe in the here and now and doing whatever you need to parent yourself away from hypervigilance again and again and again and again. But not suppressing, or not that hypervigilance is bad. Again, it's a reaction. So acknowledging the reaction and listening to what it's trying to tell you, and then tending to it, responding to it. Okay? This is the nitty-gritty of how to cope and how to get back to ultimate coping in the here and now. And then it also, like, over time, layers and layers and layers, becomes about really fostering a life of pleasure and deservingness. And like having a mindset where nothing bad happens to you. You can always overcome everything. You can create a mindset where I've got this, no matter what happens. Not to say that bad shit won't hurt, and that you're like invincible to fucking trauma. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But it's increasing your tolerance to hang out in that, to be in that, and parent yourself through it, and get back to pleasure much sooner. So to leave you, I want to give a quick little tip that I like to use when I'm super anxious or my mind is reeling and I'm in a million places at once and I have a lot of worries. Because that happens. That's a symptom of hypervigilance. When my mind is in a million places at once, I like to take a moment to consider all of those places that my mind is. It could be taxes, my mind could be in my laptop, my mind could be at my old job, my mind could be at my grandma's house, it could be at the hospital, it could be with strangers that I don't even know, it could be like there. It could be at the cat box that needs to be cleaned out. It could be in the fridge where the mac and cheese is gonna go bad any day now, right? All these fucking like thoughts that come into your brain, all these places that your brain is besides right here, right now. Take a moment to reel it all in and think about it all. And then imagine a little beam of light, a string of light going from your mind, stay with me, going from your mind to all of those places. Like millions of little beams of light going from here to Greeley and from here to California and from here to downstairs in the fridge and from here to my laptop. Like all these beams of light, right? Inhale. Suck those beams back into your brain. Sounds crazy. Suck those beams. Maybe suck is a weird word. Inhale and bring those beams of light, the energy that goes with those thoughts, bring it back into your brain. And as you exhale, imagine all of that light going down into your feet, down into the butt seat of your chair, down into where you are right now. I use that tip all the time when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm struggling to fall asleep, when I'm not focusing on the novel I'm reading, whatever. Suck it back in and push it down. Fuck, well, that sounds really repressive and terrible. It's not about repressing your worries, but it's about reclaiming your energy. Okay. I really hope that this served, y'all. Let me know. Let me know. I'm here for you. I'm here to talk you through it. Yeah. All right. I guess I'll just wrap it right up. I guess that's all I've got for you. Good luck. If nothing else, take with you a knowing that you are so powerful. You are so full of power and so resilient, and you have been through so much. So what better parent than you? Who knows you and what you need better than you? And who knows what you've been through and how to tend to that better than you? And you deserve to parent yourself the way you always wanted to be parented. Love ya.